Until then, today, Coach Helen for YouFit Studio, going to talk about fear and decision making. Because I talked about for weekend, change of environment, okay, and we've got another one tomorrow actually. Got dealing with change tomorrow as well. There's lots of change, environment, all the rest of it. Decision making though is one that's hitting less clients. It kind of does actually, as it kind of does apply to a couple of clients at the moment. It also, in general, applies to generally quite a lot in terms of health and fitness and making decisions about losing weight or changing your habits or behaviours, etc. There are some things that will actually happen to some people when they are trying to make a decision. I say trying because sometimes it's not successful. Now get this is a real terminology. It's difficult to, when I saw it, I was like, God, that's so true, except I've never actually seen it. This is a true thing. Decidophobia, so a phobia of making decisions. Now, it always makes me think of like arachnophobia or something like that. Please be drunk when you join me, Kate, online. That'll be awesome. I'll bring you on camera, Kate, like you did the interview with Sam, except it'll be very different. Decidophobia. Decidophobia, I keep saying it because the more I say it, the more normal it becomes. Decidophobia is a real thing. And whilst it seems extreme, it's like, oh, it's really a name for it. You really want to avoid making a decision that much. Actually, when I start to go through this, what I said earlier, you may actually recognise some behaviours in others or even yourself when it comes to avoiding making a decision because of fear or something else, right? Because phobia, fear, right? So you're scared of making a decision about something because there's lots of other reasons, right? I'll go through, I go through what and whys. I would say for me personally, if someone is avoiding making a decision, generally the why for me would be fear of the unknown. So, and this is to be honest, every decision we make at the minute doesn't have a known factor on the end of it. So what happens is people will find a way around it because actually they just can't see what's going to happen, the consequence of their decision, and therefore it's easier to avoid making one than make one they perceive that they will actually regret. That doesn't mean it's actually going to happen. It means they perceive there's going to be an error of judgment or there's going to be a fault with the decision. And rather than going with the flow, I suppose one way of doing it, I'll talk about how you get it sorted anyway. However, decidophobia, real thing. If I could decide, I'd make a t-shirt with it on. It seems like it's too much choice. Can't decide on the colour or the size. I joke, however, it's just my style. However, there are other subtle ways that we do that, and how you might be able to see where you fall into some elements of decidophobia. So I'm going to go through, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 ways you potentially might have it or can recognise it in others. And then we're going to go through how to sort out or try to get past some of this. Rather than straightforward, get over your fear because it is a fear. There's some ways you might realise you're doing this. And this is actually, some people will do this and they will do this. I've seen them do it with clients all the time when it comes to things like nutrition and food. They will go out of the way to avoid making choices as if the life depends on it. So far, right, that they will actually impact their relationships, right? So they go out of the way to avoid making a choice, so much so that impacts a relationship, whether family or significant other. They will make so many other moves or they will deploy so many strategies to avoid actually making a decision. So it just annoys the bejesus out of everybody. Now that might be going out somewhere like in a minute, right? That might be, I've had it with clients coming to the park workouts. Should I do it, should not? Avoid picking up the phone calls or my messages, check-ins and stuff. You'll even have heard it on one of the interviews. You had one of our members, she admitted that she was avoiding talking to me. She's just avoiding having to make a choice about whether or not to start, getting a routine back in place because she was worried about the consequence of me, right? I'm all right, by the way. I'm not scary, just let you know. However, that is a sign you might have some elements of it, right? You're actually willing to avoid that many choices along the way that you'll damage your friendships and relationships to do it. This is a good one, and I see this so much with clients. I've seen it for years, right? So depend on others to make the decisions for them. So depend on other people to make their decisions. Now, some of you will keep thinking, oh, I must be thinking about going to see a film. I always rely on someone to make a choice there. I'm talking differently. I'm thinking it from the perspective of, say you've got two clients, right? Two clients, they may or may not be related. They will usually be related, or they have a friendship, or they will be doing the journey together, right? That's how they will phrase it. That's how language it. We're doing this together. We're doing this as part of a team. Go team. And it starts off really well. And then suddenly there's a decision to go to training together or apart, or might have to train on their own. Now, if someone isn't there to make the decision, as in the party that's kind of more independent and has less decidophobia, I keep saying it because it is real. I couldn't believe it. When I saw it, I was like, God, this is so true. I thought there must be a term for this, and then I found it. If you're depending on others to make a decision, this is where it gets challenging. So if you say let's go with that same situation I'm talking about, because I see it so often. I've seen it all the time. If you've got two parties, one decides that they're not sure whether or not to train. They're scared of training alone, maybe. They're scared of the unknown of walking into the studio by themselves, or going on camera alone on a Met class online. And so what they do is they will avoid making a decision to go, so keep putting it off. And they'll probably rely on somebody else to make a decision to go. So if the friend or family member said, we're going to do it, they go, oh, okay, I couldn't decide. Actually, relying on someone, if you depend on someone to make a decision, you're equally always going to lose out, because if that person always decides not to go somewhere or do something in terms of looking after health, whether it's training or deciding where to eat even, or something like that, then if you're reluctant to make decisions, you're always going to find yourself on the back foot. This one I also love, by the way. This point, I should see this loads. Get this. Putting the decision down to fate. Right? So life will make the decision. How many people have you come across in life that do that? I'm not this Kate. Woo! Yes, I am the emoji. I've seen loads of them. As if the world will decide it. And so by making no decision, the universe will make the decision for them. And that can be a lot of things. That can be everything from health to work, even. As in, I'm going to wait for, let's just say, I'm going to wait for the perfect time to start training, or I'm going to wait for when it's just right to sort my food out, or going away from that. If I just do what I'm doing, the job of my dreams will come to me, rather than going out and making a decision to take some action. It's just going to happen if I just let fate decide. I will get to where I want to get to without taking action or making a decision, because actually making a decision is quite scary, and I'd rather just see if it happens. That one, those two, depending on others and putting the decision on fate, or letting the world decide, or whatever you want to call it, are two ones that generally speaking will is a result in a complete lack of action on both parts. Those two are pretty those two are more common than any of the others, because both of them require a lot of challenging of own fears and belief systems. Next one. If decisions make you a bit sweaty, or you get a feeling of fear of having to make a decision. It sounds silly, and yet it just generally happens to some people. There's some fear of just gonna say it, some fear about going back to the gym, going back to work, taking the kids to school, making a decision about sending kids back to school, or going back to the office, or coming training can actually give people sweaty palms. That is a real thing. And so you want to avoid making a decision, you want to avoid taking action. Same thing, it always comes down to action with some of this when it comes to decision making, because decisions right, lead to taking action. And the last one is, and actually this kind of leads with the first one as well, but actually sometimes a complete lack of decision making or ability to make a decision interferes with general life, right? So I'd rather avoid picking up the phone to work, or even speaking to my coach. I'd rather avoid looking after myself. I'd rather avoid, right, so avoiding making choices to the degree that actually it is interfering in my life. As in, I'll use an example that's easiest for people to understand it, which you see is I will sign up for a gym membership and never go, which financially has an impact and interferes with life. I will become stressed and anxious about making a decision to go. I'll avoid making a choice to go to the point of which it annoys my partner because I spent money on a gym membership I'm not using. Or I'll wait for my partner to say they're going, or my friend, and then I will go because I'm making my decision. To see, it all relates together. So as much as it is actually a real thing, decidophobia, it does actually, in small and bigger ways, I mean, I know that I've probably done some of these myself. Definitely have. Not all the time. However, anytime I have used any of these to avoid doing something, it's ultimately always fear and avoiding taking action, or actually just doing what for in reality needs to be done to move life forward. I'll just avoid it by not making a decision and avoiding making a decision. So how do you deal with this tricky, slippery little bugger? There's different ways, right? I've put together, from working with clients, 5 different ways that I've seen work in varying degrees, depending on the individual. You've got to make the decision, or decide if the decision is urgent or non-urgent, right? If it's actually urgent and it needs to be done, then you have to start to look at it and actually start to break it down. Is it time dependent? Is it financially dependent? What makes it urgent? Who's impacted if I do not make a decision right now, if I don't take action? Is it just me, or am I actually impacting on my relationships? Toss a coin. Yes, toss a coin. Is it urgent? No. Right? Reduce the number of decisions, right? Reduce the number of decisions. You legitimately hate making decisions and it makes you actually sweaty and anxious. Decide to make less, or actually choose the ones that have the biggest impact and say, right, I can deal with that. I just can't deal with the other things I think I've got to make decisions on. I'm just going to order and prioritize it. A bit like the urgent, non-urgent. Then I'm going to go for reduce the number. I'm not going to say, well, I've got to make 5 decisions today. I won't just stick to 1. Just make 1 or 2 decisions today that I know is going to improve the situation with my significant others, or makes me less dependent on other people. This one is good, and this is part of what we do as coaching, is being curious, right? We're the curious ones, right? When a client says to me, I don't want to do it, I can't decide. It's like, okay, why? Let's ask some questions. What's the worst case? What would happen if you do or don't? Right? Curious. You can be curious with yourself, though. You can ask yourself the question, like, what is it? Why is the process of deciding to make a decision actually more uncomfortable than doing it? I had literally, I mean, it wasn't planned, literally had this conversation not even an hour ago, like 40 minutes ago. I literally had this conversation where a client is focusing now for the next 7 days on actually why is there so much anxiety or fear about making a decision, that there's been a lot of avoidance. So actually they're going to be looking at exactly that, like being curious with themselves, like, what is it about this situation that is causing me to behave like this? So the actual situation, just process it, ask yourself the reasons why, and see if there's anything in common, because more often than not there's something that there are some lines to be joined. The thing is, when you're sweating and you're feeling it's quite intense, you don't really want to sit back and actually start to observe your own behaviours and thoughts. You're doing everything you can to avoid having to make a decision, or instead letting the fates decide what happens, right? Like tossing a coin, I suppose, to some degree, Kate. Unless you've got a fake coin. I would get one of those, Kate, for you for Christmas and go, let's toss a coin. I'll always be heads. Think about, and this is what this other client is going to get from this, actually. They are going to empower themselves, right? So once you empower yourself to make a decision, because making small, if you chop this down to understanding what's urgent, non-urgent, what has the biggest impact, what is a small or one thing that I can do, the process of repeating that brings a sense of empowerment to a situation. Now, we could use that analogy to anything in life, actually, to be fair. Even if you don't feel things as extreme as this, even if you feel it to some degree, as in, I can't make a decision about this, I don't know what to do. The more you practice it, the more empowering. Imagine if you've ever been in that situation, you're like, I just don't know what to do. And then suddenly just like this, right, I'm just going to do it. Going to make a decision. I always feel great. I'm like this. Yes. She's good. I've made a decision. I'm going to do it, right? It is empowering. And it's like everything that we do in life, the more you practice it, the more of a skill it becomes, the more able you do it, the more empowered you feel. And always this last one, right? I've said this time and time again in coaching. Always think about what you've learned previously when it comes to make a decision. Like what has been the reality of making a decision before? What's the best or worst case scenario? Where have you actually really benefited? Generally speaking, majority of people have always benefited when they've made a decision because they've made a decision. And then we all know change cycle. It's all about a change cycle last few days, right? Same thing, it still works. Once you make a decision, which is you're contemplating, right? You're then planning and taking action. So this again, in a different way, is still the change cycle as it is, as I've talked about before, is actually showing you that sometimes actually the deciding factor, pun intended, is to do with this. That actually some people genuinely, and it is, I've seen it from the moment I started coaching. Some people have an actual phobia to making a decision because of all the things they've just gone through and the signs that that's there. And actually working with somebody and learning the skill of empowering themselves to keep weighing up those options, to keep making decisions, to keep working through their fear of making an actual decision is part of the biggest change someone can make in mindset, because it shows they can always keep putting themselves through the change cycle and always keep learning. Yeah. No idea what that was. If you listen to this, I just made a pa-pow. Pa-pow! It's my version of boom. Sam's got boom. I'm going to do this. Pow pow. It's got less impact, doesn't it, really? That was a bad decision. I just made a bad decision. Good decision. Boom. Bad decision. Pow pow. Please don't let me do that again. Ever. Remind myself I've learnt from that. Way up that one. Never again. In the meantime, where I consider my decisions, I am going to go over and recap. So just I can't say it. Decidophobia. Decidophobia is a real thing. A fear of actually making a decision can be a challenge all on its own. And why does this come up? Well, I literally had the conversation this again. I'm going to check myself as if the time's changed. Less than 40 minutes ago, had the same conversation with a client who, through lots of other things, avoidance, impact to relationships, dependence on another, on something else, all the rest of it, this client has managed to avoid making a decision and putting themselves into situations that they feel uncomfortable when they don't know the consequences, right? So this is why we do it. We avoid making decisions to do that. The way you know you might be, I've gone over a couple of them, so you may find that it is impacting your relationships, friends, family members, significant others might be just make a decision about what you're going to do. Like, what is, like, you know it's your closest, so like, for God's sake, make a decision. It's part of what coach is there for, right? We're a little bit more subtle, we're a little bit more inquisitive, right? How else you might have to depend on others to make the decision for you. And I'll talk about empowering when I talked about it in the recap. If you've ever been a person that is dependent on someone else, it is disempowering, right? Because they are deciding things for you. They might decide something that actually you wouldn't have gone with deep down. It's just they made a decision and you're relying on them to do it for you. So they decide where you go to eat, they decide what you watch, they decide everything. You are disempowered by that when you're not making the decision yourself. You may put, I still love this one. These two, I will say it again, these two, so common. Put the decision down to fate. I always say it's like you're waiting for the every single planet to align. I always use swear at that point, but I won't. For all the planets to align, for the clouds to part, angels to sing, and a rainbow unicorn to dance through your living room / bedroom / wherever it is, for you to take action. And that is a client waiting for fate to decide that something's going to happen, or they're going to take action and see a consequence. And all of those things don't ever happen, by the way. I mean, and all the time. If someone can prove me that will actually happen, then I will accept it and say, do you know what, I take that one back. As yet, all those things have not happened at the same time. I might have seen one coincidentally, but all those factors not at the same time. Meanwhile, there is a person, as one of us sat there, or a client, or someone you might know, or yourself sat there like waiting for fate to decide on a decision, which is never coming, and therefore you're waiting for the rainbow unicorn way longer than is probably beneficial to yourself. You've got to appreciate that sometimes that might be a very long time, hence why some clients make the decision to move forward in change, right? If, right, say for example, another reason to know is that you might get the old sweaty palms, and as far as some clients, like I said, some clients saying they feel anxious about making a decision, that it's too uncomfortable for them, and actually to the point, like I said, final point I was making, if it actually interferes so much with your life that nothing is happening, even for what I talked about putting it down to fate or interfering with relationships, it's pretty big. Like if it's happening a lot and with some major stuff, you know, health and fitness or otherwise, it's interfering with life, right? And then I just recap through the house, so I'll quickly run through them. So decide if it's urgent or not. Making it actionable is doing that, right? Is it really that urgent or not? Who does it impact if I do or do not make a decision? Be conscious of it. Mindful, as you like the word, Kate, mindful. Being mindful of your decisions as much as anything else in life. Reduce the number of decisions. Make one, not many. Make one that has low or high impact, whatever you'll feel comfortable with, right? Maybe the decision will make no difference at all. The fact is you made one though. Be curious. Ask yourself why. Why is it that this whole process is giving me this sensation, these thoughts, these feelings, etc. When actually what I need to do is just understand myself better and empower myself, right? I said that if you're disempowered by not making decisions, the more you act on the skill of empowering yourself by making those decisions, the easier they become. And always think about what you've learned, because that is a super special thing. No pals. Okay, we confirmed the no pals. No, okay, I tried. And Kate's saying, always say, if you can't decide what you want, then decide what you don't want. Ooh, that is banger. Hello, Kate. Let's go. I'm going to say that one again. That was a banger right there. Pow. I did it. I always say, this is Kate Goodham for saying, I always say, if you can't decide what you want, then decide what you don't want. That's really good. If you, hey, Vijay, I just can't, that's even better than deciding to put something on a t-shirt if I'm so indecisive. I always say, if you can't decide what you want, then decide what you don't want. That's so true. If you, and this is the thing about pre-contemplation. I always say, you're weighing up pros and cons of doing nothing as opposed to bobble or taking action. Like if you don't want, this is the thing though, Kate, I think some people genuinely just get stuck. And this is why they let fate decide, because think, God, I don't know. What's the consequence of either decision? You're right though. Sometimes it is like saying, what's the thing that could happen if I don't? What do I not want to happen if I don't do something? But it is though, it always comes down, like I said before, it always comes down to taking action or not taking action. So fear of decision, this decision making itself, yes. Decidophobia, we'll keep saying it, is a real thing. Decidophobia is a real thing. It's a real condition if it's really extreme to everybody. What I'm saying in this is that there's some variations of it within all of us where we avoid making a decision, or we avoid thinking about the worst case scenarios, as in decide what I don't want. And it all comes down to whether or not you're ready to take action, or in your head if the action will lead to something you don't or do want. So good to bear in mind. Right. Keeping on the same stream of thought, because there's so much of it at the minute, dealing with change. And then the one after the day after tomorrow, Wednesday, I got fear of success. Ooh, no one ever that one. In the meantime, I hope you decide to have whatever you decide to do tonight. Whatever you decide to do tonight, I do hope you enjoy it. I'm sure that you will, whatever it is. And I'll catch you tomorrow.